Good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett and Bolladroff, staff and guests. The lobbies are open. The recording has begun.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. We'll convene the Liquor and Cannabis Board Caucus meeting for Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Our first rules update will be a general update on rulemaking, and turn it over to Cassidy West, our Policy and Rules Manager. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairperson, board members Garrett and Bolladroff. So I'll go ahead and start out with petitions. We have 4 active petitions. We received a new petition on October 31st to amend WAC 314-55082 to address the use of captive insurance companies for cannabis licensees. The petitioner cites unique insurance needs of the cannabis industry and the advantage of using captive insurers. Daniel will be presenting the response on December 18th, and coordination is already underway with the Office of the Insurance Commissioner. At the next board meeting, we will be presenting 2 petitions. I'll be presenting a petition regarding cannabis payment flexibility, and those are on the rules that Daniel you recently adopted and Daniel was working on. And then also Denise will be presenting a petition on the replacing CCRS. And so the 4th petition is a request to amend WAC 314-02045. And this is to reduce the requirements for days and hours to remain open under a beer and or wine restaurant license. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I can go ahead and move on to the rulemaking.
No, go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. So in November, as I just mentioned, we have the 2 petitions, 2 petition responses. In addition, we'll be disseminating draft language for the minors on non-retail premises project, as well as the sale of cannabis waste rulemaking project. And so we will be sending out a gov delivery to stakeholders and also posting rules on our website. This is draft language, and we are going to get feedback from stakeholders and move on from there. So that's all for November. Coming up in December, it's a very busy month for board actions. So in addition to the petition I mentioned earlier, on December 4th, we will have the public hearings for the proposed rules for social equity and the proposed rules for House Bill 2204 regarding emergency liquor permits. And I should mention that we have not received any comments regarding social equity. So that's good, I think. So the earliest those 103s can be filed on both of those projects will be that 18th. So that's the last meeting for the board. So also in December, Daniel will be initiating the alcohol product placement rulemaking project. And then we tentatively plan to bring the 102s for cannabis waste, minors on non-retail premises, and the implementation of House Bill 2151 regarding the transfer of lab accreditation authority. And you know what? I should mention that we also are planning on having stakeholder engagement regarding 2151 in November. So, or early December. So that is all tentative. We're working on that draft language right now. And because we are coordinating with WSDA, that is a factor affecting the timeline. So, and then finally, I want to mention that cannabis sampling, we are working to address stakeholder comments that were received. And so until we fully understand stakeholder comments, we're not going to move forward with that. And then the ESOP. Oh, did you have a question? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Okay. So the ESOP that Daniel's working on, the next steps for that will be stakeholder engagement on draft rules. So that is all for the updates today. Are there any questions?
Yeah, quick one on cannabis sampling. When you talk about the feedback that we're still analyzing, is that about the research and development question? Is that the one remaining piece, or?
It is, yes. And we've also received comments on employee amounts. So we're looking at increasing those as well.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Cassie? No, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Jeff Kildall, Policy and Rules Coordinator, will brief us on the board action tomorrow for the CR 103 on gender neutral terminology.
Yeah. Good morning, Chair Postman and board members Garrett and Vollendroff. This morning, I am giving a brief preview of a CR 103 notice of permanent rulemaking that I will present tomorrow for your approval. This rulemaking concerns updating rules in Title 314 WAC to replace gender-specific language that was written into some of these rules with gender-neutral language reflecting modern standards of inclusivity and belonging. For the background of how this project began, on May 8th, 2024, the board accepted a rule petition requesting amendments to Title 314 WAC to replace gender-specific pronouns with gender-neutral language. In response, the rulemaking was begun in September 24 to update these rules to reflect the petitioner's request. The rulemaking was initiated on September 9th, 2024, with the CR 105 filed as WSR 24-19-026. This rulemaking modernizes the rules of LCB to reflect contemporary standards of inclusivity and ensures that the language used in regulatory documents is non-discriminatory and equitable for all individuals. This expedited rulemaking process under 3405-353 was appropriate for this rulemaking, as the amendments are technical in nature with no effect on meaning or application of the rules. Instead, they enhance clarity and inclusiveness of LCB's regulation and are expected to have no adverse impact on stakeholders. In all, 40 sections of Title 314 WAC are included in the rulemaking to replace gender-specific language with gender-neutral language, including rules related to requirements for liquor licenses, allowed activities, contested liquor licenses and liquor license renewals, the sale of tobacco products, and other chapters in 314 WAC. If approved for filing tomorrow, the permanent rules will take effect on December 7th, 2024. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just one comment. So let's move fast forwarding to that effective date you just mentioned. And at that point, then, do we have to then go back and actually make all the changes? Or does this make the change? This will make those changes.
This makes the change official so that then the Office of the Code Revisor can update the rules officially. So
okay,
the rules do take effect on December 7th, and it usually takes 2 weeks or so for them to be reflected online, but they do in fact take effect on December 7th.
Which means the language changes as of that date.
Right, officially, yes.
Okay, good. That's what's happening. All right. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on, Daniel Jacobs will present the rules petition requesting to add an alcohol warning to bottles of alcohol for increased health risks.
Thank you and good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett and Vollendroff. This morning, I'm going to preview the petition response that I'll be presenting for action during tomorrow's board meeting. On September 18th, Lucy White submitted a petition to the agency asking to create a rule to add a mandatory warning on alcohol containers sold in Washington state, warning of the health impacts of alcohol withdrawal syndrome. Because health warnings on alcohol containers are governed by federal law, and any state requirements are explicitly preempted, the Director's Office will be recommending denying this petition. Before continuing, I want to state that while I am a licensed attorney in the state of Washington, nothing I'm saying is meant to be legal advice or should be construed as legal advice, and anyone with specific questions about their situation should contact a licensed attorney. Under the Alcoholic Beverage Labeling Act of 1988, and TTB regulations, the following health warning has to appear on all alcohol containers. Quote, government warning, according to the Surgeon General, women should not drink alcoholic beverages during pregnancy because of the risk of birth defects. Consumption of alcoholic beverages impairs your ability to drive a car or operate machinery and may cause health problems. Additionally, federal statutes and rules state that, quote, no statement relating to alcoholic beverages and health, other than the statement just mentioned, shall be required under state law to be placed on any container of an alcoholic beverage or on any box, carton, or other package, irrespective of the materials from which made that contains such a container. Lastly, we actually received a comment earlier this morning from the Washington Beer and Wine Distributors Association, indicating their opposition to acceptance of this petition, noting the federal preemption just mentioned and identifying the increased costs that a new health warning would place on distributors and manufacturers. As such, I'm going to be recommending tomorrow that we deny the rulemaking petition. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, I'm going to go for a hat trick and ask one quick question. So just to put it into non-lawyer at my level. So when you basically federal law is very specific that we can't do this. Is that what that means? Preempt and
so
no, the state. You read a part that said the state cannot add. Is it
yes,
that
essentially, yes.
Okay.
In lay terms, yes, we are preempted. They're, in sort of, if it was like a fight, sort of their rulemaking versus our rulemaking, their rulemaking wins. And
Right.
They have a rule that says their rulemaking on this particular topic always wins.
Trumps? Yeah. Okay. Jim?
Daniel, in your research, did you happen to see when the federal label was last updated, just out of curiosity? How long has the existing label been in place?
So the label is older than I am. It was created in 1988. So the label was created either at the very tail end of the Reagan administration or the very beginning of Bush Sr.'s administration. As far as I can tell, it hasn't been updated since, but that was when that a requirement for a new label was created. And as far as I can tell, not just the label requirement, but also the law that says, and the state can't add anything on top of it. That's been in place ever since also.
Okay. The only reason I ask is, I agree with the recommendation at this point. Essentially, we don't have the authority to make this change. However, I would suggest that the petitioner, look at who does have the ability. If it's not been updated in that long, I think there's a lot of new research on the health effects of alcohol. We used to say that small amounts of wine were actually healthy. There's been a lot of discussion and new research that questions that. So I think that it's worth the petitioner looking at who has the authority to change this language, but not us necessarily. So thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. And I'll say it now. I was going to say it tomorrow and I say it in the petition response that frankly, I think the underlying merits of an additional alcohol health warning, I think that would be worthy of a discussion because there is growing research that wasn't around in 1988 or, in, the years following. And so I also anticipated that this board would be having a different discussion if we weren't specifically preempted from it.
Yeah. I agree. And this petitioner specifically calls out alcohol withdrawal. And as a person who has worked in the industry and seen people experience physical withdrawal from alcohol, which can be life-threatening, I think it's a really good conversation to have.
Yeah, certainly. And I can, when assuming that if the petition is denied, I can provide the petitioner with contact information. I think it would probably be the TTB, but I don't know if they actually have a formal rule making. I don't know if they have a petition process. They're a federal agency, so I imagine they do, but and we have contact at TTB also that I can see about providing information on.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thanks. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Is our agenda, unless board members have anything to add?
I have nothing.
Staff, Executive director, executive assistant or executive director. No, nobody does. Okay. Then we'll adjourn. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock for our board meeting. Thanks, everybody.